Hey y'all. Sorry, I'm in a silly mood today. Hold on one second. Hey guys, how are you? So, welcome back. We are going to watch the second part of the Sister Song presentation, Black Men Trust Black Women Roundtable, presented by Sister Song and BLD Power. Let's see where we left off. Guys, tell me like which one you prefer, if I should like go through the entire thing and then comment, or if we should, if you guys like it the way I'm doing it now, where I'm like stopping in between. I try not to stop in like locations where I feel like it's getting pretty heated and not heated, but like interesting. So anyways, if anyone wants to comment, just let me know.
So it is good. My children, I don't care that they're only 9, 10, 7, 6. They have problems, and every black man at this table had problems. We had situations we couldn't talk to people about. Get your children in therapy. If you can't afford to do it, healthcare can cover it. Get your children in therapy because they need to have that healthy outlet to have somebody. They don't always feel safe talking to mom and daddy, regardless of how well we are. They don't feel safe doing that.
I would say be careful about getting your therapy from white people, but
say get it. Don't say white therapists. No, I don't listening to. In general, when they talk about,
watch when you're listening to them too. But what I do want to also say is that I think is really important is that our safety doesn't. Our responsibility in Black women's safety isn't on us to protect our partner generally. It's not just us that's going to have that responsibility.
For sure.
We have to realize that honestly, statistically, the safety from a partner in America is that you're actually less safe from your partner generally.
That makes sense.
Partner violence is so the safety has to come from how you build an accountability outside of that relationship, outside of that family. What is that village you building, right?
Right.
And so I'm interested.
I'm listening. So like I'm just gathering information. I have a lot.
Oh, I'm saying both of y'all.
Same. Yeah.
Jump in there. How are y'all thinking beyond like I'm gonna protect my partner? Because I think that there's a value in that. I think there's a value in I'm gonna protect my partner, ain't nothing gonna happen to my partner. At the end of the day though, when you have such big systems that are targeting you and doing their best to pull y'all apart, doing their best to divide y'all and pit y'all against each other, you can't depend on, and that's something that we're taught. Masculinity is how powerful we can be and how we could protect what we own and what we, you know what I'm saying? That is not what protection is. That's not what safety is. So I'm thinking about, outside of that, how do y'all think about safety outside of just I'm the protector? You know what I'm saying? How do we build that?
the thing that pops into my head right now as we're having this conversation is the system is capitalism, and what that looks like is we're talking about therapy, which is, I think, is very important, but we don't think about the colonial aspect of therapy, which I mentioned in our conversation earlier, and how capitalism and this individualistic view of our responsibility as well is tied to breaking up of our communities. You talked about a village. So when we're thinking about our families, like you as a father, I'm not a dad, I don't have any children, I don't plan on it. When people think, okay, I have a family and I'm raising my children, it's like mom, dad, kids. And we forget like that is a lot of pressure, and it's not supposed to be that way.
Right.
I think it's supposed to be a community of people that are helping each other, and we have not created that community. It's just like, I'm over here with my family here, I'm over there with my family there, and there's no communication. And I think that's ultimately something that's really important, is us being able to come together and create from there, create the community where everyone has a responsibility to themselves and each other.
Our natural ways have been dismantled.
Real quick, do you have examples of what that looks like in your life?
Give me a more specific question. Sorry.
If it's not, you think about it, but just like what that protection, what that looks like. That you talked about colonial effect on therapy.
Yeah.
Now, I know that to me, I'm like, hell yeah, talk about the colonial therapy. But I also don't. I know that a lot of people don't know what the hell that means, right?
I'm saying, like, when you think about therapy and when you're going,
and I'm not asking you necessarily about that. I'm asking you generally what that protection and that outside help and so it looks like in your life.
Okay. Like growing up, I'll use my life as an example. Obviously, I grew up with both my parents, my mom and my dad. From the outside, it would look very traditional, but my mom was the one that was really holding everything down. My dad was very supportive with me when it came to providing monetarily. He also was the one that had a more formal education, so he was able to help me when I needed help with schoolwork. But when it came to my care, it was my mom that was there. And then I noticed the way that he behaved, or like his behavior around women, and how he was with my mom, how he was with his sisters and his mother, and how he was with me. So I'm, as a trans person, and as being his daughter and his little girl at the time, he treated me with such care, and it was the complete antithesis in the way that he treated my mother and the way that he treated his sister. So it was interesting to see him treat my mom like shit. And then be like, no, but my sister's like, I'll kill somebody if someone messes with my sister. I'll kill somebody if someone messes with my mother. I'm like, why don't you bring that same energy to my mother? So
works off of that. Oh wait.
I mean, and so when in my process, like in my transition, and when I started thinking about how I wanted to show up as a man in this world, it was like I wanted to borrow that softness that he embodied when he was interacting with other women in his family, but not the way that he treated my mother, and what that partner violence looked like, and why. So that I started to question what was his view of my mother, because clearly he didn't see her as family. Not really. He saw her as an incubator that gave birth to his child that he now loves and cares for. And then he has his sisters and his mother that he also cares for and wants to protect. But all the women that he would be engaged sexually with were just that. There were things that I would get pleasure, and they can make me a meal. And that was that.
Personally, I grew up with all women. Like, single parent home, had no grandparents except my grandmother, no grandfather. Both had passed away before I was born. Father wasn't around, and taking care of everybody. So I've always conceded power to women. That's been my nature. I was in my nature and my nurture, is because that's all that was there. So for my journey, I was in autobiographies trying to figure out where's a man and who could teach me how to do it. What does it look like? I'm looking to Sammy Davis Jr. and Sidney Poitier, and anybody's got autobiography or whatever, Bill Cosby, only to get that dream shattered. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of men who've grown up in those environments are trying to figure out how to hold themselves accountable while also holding themselves hostage. Right? I was trying to take up for my father not being there. I was trying to take up for my grandfather's not being there. overcompensating and not necessarily knowing exactly what my place and my position was. So I think a lot of, I can't speak for everybody, but I think a lot of Black men just don't know when they say be a man, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And not even what does that mean? That doesn't mean the same thing for this woman. That doesn't mean the same thing for this woman. You know, what is her that, you know, so I think a lot of it is both, is double dutching. It's like, how do I give myself enough grace while also pushing myself and challenging myself to learn and listen and hear. And like I said, like even there's not a single same
Perspective.
It's
all different.
It's all different. We're all figuring it out, you know. And I think that's, like I say, it's like, how much grace can we give ourselves? How can we hold ourselves accountable without the guilt and the shame kicking in? Because once guilt and shame will do a whole lot. Guilt and shame will freeze you up. Guilt and shame will keep you from actually sitting in a space that actually is safe. You don't know that it's safe because you so used to, putting on. You know, it's just, I think it's just that, it's having space to even do this. This is village.
And
right?
accountability, like you said, giving yourself that grace, and then understanding when it's like, all right, tighten up.
All
right, it's time to, and then educating yourself. A lot of us, we don't remember to read, right? Y'all remember them posters that they used to say read? And you got your celebrity on there, and you don't even see them posters no more. Right? You don't even see things to really push each other. Right. Educate. So the more we can kind of educate ourselves, and like you said, to your point, to the village, right? Understanding that it's there, it's obtainable, right? I just shot a movie in Nicholson Gardens, and I'm like, yo, all these kids in the project still got villages that we are taking away. You try to get away from the, oh, it's tough times in the Black neighborhood. It's like, man, these kids still out here playing. They still out here having a good time. Right, and understanding like why or what that is for certain communities and why it's necessary for them. They don't got nobody else, so they gotta send their kids outside to say, "Hey, can you watch my kid today for a second? I gotta go to work." Whatever. So sometimes you get above yourself and think, "I don't need nobody. I done made enough money. I can pay for this nanny over here." Rather than being like, "Oh, nah, Luke, you want your kid to come hang out with my kid today, and then we go do this." All right, cool. We hang out. Remembering that it's all there and it's obtainable, but sometimes we push it away ourselves too. You know.
Something that I really do think about when we thinking about power, right? Because I think we misunderstand power. We've been taught all types of false definitions and notions of power. And a lot of the time, the way that we understand power is really abuse, right? It's like we bully each other. We abuse our power over each other and say things that we're not supposed to. We bully or abuse our power over women. We abuse our power over kids. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the time, that's what we see. And I want to know just a simple question. When we're thinking about, I think with the opposite of abuse, when we think about love, and love can be powerful, love can be extremely powerful. What does it mean to love Black women? And I want y'all to think about, because you you was talking about what did you say? Accountability. Holding ourselves accountable while holding ourselves hostage.
Trying to hold ourselves accountable without holding ourselves.
Talking about parents and all type, So I'm just we can tie all of that shit in. It's not a limited conversation, but just thinking about just first to introduce it into like, what does it mean to love Black women?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I got a perspective about love. One perspective about love. I think that love is uncontrollable. I think it's spontaneous. I think in its rarest form, you cannot contain it. And I think that's the first part. I think it doesn't. It belongs to everybody, and how it's received and how it's received is not up to you. But it's how you give it is up to you. But I think it's first there. Understanding what the power of love really is. Because I think everybody has their perspective of what love is in my household. What love is with my woman.
Right.
As opposed to what does love mean to her? What does that mean to you? I'll tell you what it means to me. You tell me what it means to you. And let's find our way to middle ground of some sort. I think it's there. It's just trying to understand what that is. Because everybody throws that shit around. It's popular. Right. Makes a lot of money. It's nice. Everybody wants it. Everybody's fighting for a variation of it. Right. It's trying to understand what that is. And I just think that love is not a thing that we can control. It just is. first.
I see this head nod going. I like that. Go ahead. I like it.
I'm going to combine like a couple of different topics, and it won't be in any chronological order, so just bear with me.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that conscious will talk about is pandering, and me as a Black gay man, for me, love shows up as different. There's no sex attached to my care for Black women. So I would say for me as a child, one of the strongest women that were within my life was my grandmother. She was someone who, she loved me with everything. She was someone who made sure that whenever I walk into a room, know that, you know, I'm not trying to sound cocky or nothing, but eyes will be on you. People will be listening to you. Whatever you want to be in your life, you can be, whether that be a president, a CEO, whether you own your own business, whether you be a millionaire, anything you want to do, you can do. And with that, my grandmother was someone, she was a banker. You know, she was someone who, she helped her community. All the people from Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas, North Little Rock, Arkansas, she knew all the millionaires. She knew all the business owners. She told people yes, no. She ran her bank. She ran her branch. She had people pull guns out on her and trying to rob her. That same woman who left work, she was someone who raised two strong sons. My father's a federal investigator. My uncle, my late uncle, he was a manager of the VA for the suicide unit. She was someone who raised strong Black men. And the same Black men that she supported, the same Black man that she fed that was also her husband, also be the same people that put their thumb on that motherfucking head.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm trying to say is someone who can be so strong. We also live where we're in a community where traditionally, once a white man took his thumb off of us, a lot of us put our thumb on the woman.
Yes.
So one thing that you talked about as far as like your dad and how you treated your mother, I feel like one privilege it is to not be gay. Not gonna lie, I love being gay. Like, you know, like whether it's not a choice, it's not a choice, it's not a choice. But in my life, what I feel is, you know, it was karma for the straight men, and also like to reject what patriarchy and masculinity look like, because I had to choose how I'm going to live my life. So, you know how you were talking about how your dad, he was real good with his mom, he was real good with his sisters.
And me as a child.
Yes. A lot of men, they just live based off of the moral code. You don't even know what your own motherfucking morals are. A lot of you just want to have children because that's what you're taught to. You didn't get no education. You're not saying you have to get education. You have no craft. You have no skill. So all you can do is really just have fun and have children. Nigga, fuck you. And then another thing that I want to say is too, a lot of people, you know, when I said like, you know, having accolades and things like this, a lot of my friends, and especially when moving to Houston, I have such a respect because like in Arkansas, a lot of people had kids by the time that they were my age. I'm 26. Majority of my friends, like they're between 29 to 30 to 40, you know, beautiful women, well into the careers, clocking 200,000 plus. You know, my allyship to them is supporting them whenever we're out. Like I am a protector. I'm not, there's a big kind of like conversation about like, oh, gay men don't want to be treated as like poodles or whatever. Realistically, I'm 6'2", I'm 200 pounds, 215. Like, it's like if a motherfucker step up to my friends, I'm going to defend them. I feel like my presence as a Black gay man is to use my masculinity, me being a man, as to not only allow myself, you know, vertical, you know, promotion within life. I don't know how to coin that the right way, but also bring up my sisters with me. Mm-hmm. And that can be whether it's education, go and get that education, whether it's in careers, because Black women are the smartest group in America. But they're also the most underpaid. If you want that money, ask for it. You know, whenever you go to the interview, let them know what you want. Mm-hmm. And the same thing as far as like a job, how you can switch out a job is no different than a man. And you know how we're talking about like the moral basis of, I don't want to lose my track. The moral basis of people not knowing themselves and having babies, a lot of men don't got shit to contribute. If you can't even commit marriage to a motherfucking woman, what makes you think that she wants to commit to having a baby? That 9 to 10 months, that can fuck up that whole baby's life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not being supported.
Yeah, you can't.
In the same way that she was talking about, you know, asking for that promotion and things like that, because that also, when we're when we're seen as having some more control or power over in a work environment, you know, people aren't gonna abuse us as much. People aren't gonna. So,
Guys, I just want to correct myself. I keep saying this because I see BLD and I want to say bold power. It's build power. And while I've already stopped it, I just wanted to make a few comments. So I really like this. This section. So far it's I feel like it's more conversational. I think like that because they were trying to get warmed up probably. But like it seemed like it was a little bit more interactive, like naturally interactive. So I wanted to pull up the part that they were saying colonial effects on therapy. Excuse me. So it colonialism has profoundly shaped modern. This is I found just found this, but actually should it? Sorry, I'm just trying to find something that sums it up as opposed to like having to read an entire diatribe. Um, Although it's very interesting, I would probably discuss it at length. Um, Trying to find, well, I'll read this. I'm not sure what Mad in America. Well, okay, this is from Mad in America. Miradula Sridhar. I know I butchered that. I try to practice like what I'm saying somebody's name because I don't like messing up people's names. But it's the article is titled like Modern Psychology and its Colonial Legacy. And it kind of discusses like how colonialism has profoundly shaped modern therapy by prioritizing Western individualistic models like CBT, which is cognitive based therapy, um, cognitive behavioral therapy, sorry, and DSM, which is DSM, Diagnostic and Statistic Manual. I don't know why no. DSM. Nope, I was right. Okay. So essentially, the colonization of mental health is like the effects of Western civilization and the thoughts and processes of um, Western civilization and how it can undermine someone's culture and allow the I shouldn't say modalities, the types of mental health that you receive, um, may not fit you because of your culture. And there are things in your past history, like your um, how Western culture is kind of taken over to impact how that treatment may harm you in some ways because it's not relevant to you. Let me know if that makes sense. Um, so for instance, talking about like ways in which people were institutionalized, or using things like the DSM and which is a book that's based on research, right? Um, to come to a conclusion if somebody should be like it gives you a set of symptoms and it tells you like, okay, based on these, and we've ruled out everything else, this is what we think this person has. And it's used in psychiatry, right? And then but because of the way that the research was done, essentially it undermines cultural aspects. So like not taking into account how maybe another um culture interacts with mental health, not taking into account like remedies that are passed down from family to family in a culture, or not accounting for coded language within a culture, right? So all of these things are not taken into account. And I'll give you an example and something that I'm super interested in. I know this is such a tangent, but like something I'm super interested in is like um the diagnoses of autism and how a lot of black men and women, and not just black men and women, but like um anyone that is not any a person of color has been it's they tend not to be diagnosed as much. And if you know anything about autism, um you tend to have there are a certain number of therapies that you can utilize if you are diagnosed early to kind of help you later in life, right? To kind of acclimate yourself. Some of them are arguably not helpful, right? Because again, it doesn't take into the culture of autism and all the aspects of it. And so, um, I lost my thought. Oh, so okay, so because of that, um, because of the research and who the research is done on, right? We often see like, or if you're into like research and stuff like that, you often hear a lot of the research is not done on, on people of color, and that includes all types of research. And if it is done, because the researcher is not culturally competent, is that even something that's helpful? So so you have all of your research, and all of these scientists are pulling from this research, and all of the doctors are looking at this research, and they're like, okay, I'm going to utilize this research, and based on this research, because all these professionals have said this is important and impactful for my patient, I'm going to use it. And then they're like, oh, actually, this is not working for this patient. Well, it's because maybe you guys didn't like they weren't you didn't check, or you didn't have enough, black people in it. You didn't have enough black males. You didn't take into account traumas or experiences, and it doesn't even have to be a person of color. It could be oh, this is all wrong. It could be a white person who has had other traumas, PTSD, or it could be a population, vets, who have seen things, who experienced things. I was watching something where they were talking about um this guy like suicide and this how they're seeing micro tears from like the impact of the sounds that they're exposed to in terms of like gunfires and bombs and stuff like that, and it's leading to suicide, right? So like, cognitive based therapy is not going to help something like that. But if you look at the DSM and then they're like, oh, well, PTSD, yeah, just give them cognitive-based therapies, give them this medication, send them on their way, and not accounting for anything else. So, I know that was like such a large tangent and there's like so much more to it, but like you like I hopefully that was helpful because like I think he was trying to push him towards like kind of answering like what is it to you, um kind of to help other people understand, and he kind of did answer it for his own edification, right? But like um that's so like I think that's something important to reflect, like because people feel like, oh, like even for me, for instance, I don't feel I believe that you should get therapy. But the alignment of CBT, I never felt like it worked out for me. Like I've tried it so many times, like I've talked to so many people. Um and again, it could be just my own experiences, how I perceive people, and so um I am looking for other modalities, which are just like other types of therapies, right? CBT can be, and sometimes you might need CBT in conjunction with something else too. I'm not giving up on CBT, but like definitely, that's something to think about. Like if you're like, I feel like I'm not aligning with this type of um therapy, there's a plethora of therapy. You don't have to stop at CBT. Um, there was something that he had mentioned. Oh, having a black therapist. He, I go back and forth with this thought process of having a black therapist. I do believe that you should have a culturally relevant therapist, whether that's black or white. I don't know if I agree with that, right? Because um either culturally relevant or culturally competent, which are two different things, right? Culturally relevant would be like, for me, that would be um a a black or Caribbean um therapist. But culturally competent could be a white therapist that has worked with a plethora um of what is it called? A black was has worked with a multitude of like different populations. And I don't think like when you're culturally competent, I don't think you can work with like one population and say that you're culturally competent. You have to see like a multitude of things, right? Um But with that said, I've had experiences with a therapist. I've had like two experiences. Like when I was once in college, I went to this therapist and she was just very dismissive of me. And because of that, I was just like, that kind of really pushed me away from therapy in general. Because I sought out a black therapist. And that's like one therapist is one therapist. You can't say like, um, oh, I went to his therapist, so all therapists are like that. Like all therapists are different, right? But at that time I was like, this is not working for me. She's not listening to me. I had had like a death in the family. I was just going through a lot and like I'm like trying to tell her all this and she was just like extremely dismissive about it. So, um I just like was not for it at all. Um and then that causes repercussions afterwards because again, that causes mistrust between you and any therapy that you are seeking out. And that's for anybody, right? So that's just like a thought for like a person of color that is also a therapist or whatever. Um and then what was the other thing that they were talking about? So they were also talking about having community. Oh, and this goes with the colonial effect on therapy. So like no community, not just of the family. And he gave his example. And so he was asking like examples of what it looks like. And so for me, like I've lived in my neighborhood all my life. Um and I pretty much know everyone, for sure, I know everyone within a three house on both sides, if not five houses down. To the point where like there was an incident where I had to contact them. Um, and this is on both sides of the like on the side of my house and on the opposite side. I've grown up with majority of them. Recently my neighbor passed away. Like he's no he knew me since I was a kid. Um, but like we're all close. We know each other. Um, and I wound up having to call them when there was an incident at the house when I was away, and I trusted that they would be able to help, right? And I feel like a lot of people can't say that. Like when I was in our what is it called? Apartment, I really didn't know my neighbors. I knew so there was at our first apartment, I knew the neighbor across the way from us. And then she moved, and then there was like this little super sketch couple, and I don't know what they were doing, what they were about, but like we were like, let's not and say we did, and we never really like we were trying to be friendly with them, but like it was a lot of stuff going on, and so we wound up like not kind of talking with them, but like we've like when I was with my partner, like we tried to make community there. And there were like other people that I met that was like, oh, this is really cool or whatever. Um, but it wasn't like consistent where I would say like I knew them to contact them really. Um, I think in that case, like that's a part of just how the US and that's like the whole conversation with colonialism and being individualistic versus collective. And they kind of like talked about that, trying to be more like, oh, I can lean on this person, I can talk to this person and know that they have my back. Um, and we don't have that here. And I really feel like it shows. I mean, really, it does. Like it really shows within the communities here. So, yeah. Um, I thought it was interesting that Laith said his dad treated him well and his sisters well, but his mom and his dad's sister poorly, and how he didn't understand why it didn't translate, you know. And I think you see a lot of that when I think that comes with the territory when you're talking about people's experiences and what they went through, because maybe his dad showed him the same thing. Like that's kind of like one of those things is like who showed you how to be that way? And I think it's Watson. He kind of like talked about that and how public figures kind of filled that space where like for him he didn't have his dad or his grandfather, and how you fill that space with people that you see on TV, like he said Sidney Poitier, and then Bill Cosby, and then he was like he was kind of let down by Bill Cosby. I think we all are kind of like, even if you had your dad or your grandfather, you're kind of like, oh, Bill Cosby. So, I got that. But I think those two commentaries about like um having to find outside sources and what that looks like in connection with like um more of a collective bonding, and making sure that when maybe the public figures, I mean, it's okay to have public figures, but it's nothing like having someone in your neighborhood saying like, "Hey, um, like let's hang out," and not having to worry about if they're a perv. Like that's the biggest part, like not having to worry about if they're a perv. Because like that's the other thing, like how do you grapple with like someone being like you don't know, like these days, like it's so wild the amount of, excuse me, things I see online about a man doing something to someone's kid, and well, and women too. I mean, I've seen a couple of school teachers, but just not being able to feel safe in that aspect of it has been like a large concern in terms of, excuse me, how do you know that this person is going to receive, like if I need help, how can you ensure that this person is going to be the person that I say they're going to be, or I know they should be. Um, and not having the definition of what being a man is. I did like the perspective, and I forgot who had brought this up about um I think it was Watson, living with like grace and pushing but while living with grace while pushing yourself to be the best person you can be. And I think that's lost on a lot of people because we expect people to be perfectionist and get it all down. And the reality is like, especially within communities of color, we don't have it perfect, and we're working with what we have. And I think like sometimes we are hard on each other, and we we are we're not taking into account, I think we're hard on each other on the things we shouldn't be hard on each other for, and we're not hard on the things that we should be hard on, if that makes sense. So like I've heard firsthand people telling, I mean, grown women telling men about, how they're a B or they're a P because they, you know, are showing some type of emotion, or they're, um, or they're talking about their mental health. And I feel like a man should feel like they're at home, and then a man should make a woman feel safe enough to be able to take care. And I'm not gonna say that. It should be a 50-50 split, but like be able to feel safe to do all the things like they were saying, because women ultimately, unfortunately, are take on a lot of the brunt of, caring for the house, caring for the kids. And so changing that, like to me, you need to learn skills to help around the house, whether that's cleaning and stuff to support um your mother, um your wife, your girlfriend, whoever. And then but also recognizing and using language and showing in your actions like you want her to feel safe to come to you. You want her to feel safe about where you guys are going. Like I feel like a lot of women are like, this is what I want. And so I'm not getting it. And I don't know. There's just like such a big disconnect to me, with how we are entertaining in the dating space. And it's causing a lot of harm, like real health harm, like not just mentally, but physically. So it's a larger conversation, right? Like it's clearly one-sided because I'm just sitting here talking to a computer. But regardless, I think that it's important for us to listen more, to engage more. I think we're so quick to being physical. Um, and if physicality is something that you're seeking, that's on you, right? But then like, you know, you have to seek clarity in where you're going with it. And I think a lot of people don't do that, like on both sides, women and men. That was such a tangent. But that's all to say, like, yes, as a man, you should be giving yourself grace to be able to challenge yourself. Like, when you challenge yourself, it's okay. Like, it's when you're challenging yourself that you should be giving yourself the most grace, right? Like, okay, I did this, but I faltered here, but that's okay. I'm going to make it up or whatever. But that challenge should be not just listening, but in action to talking to your wife and really understanding what she's saying. Um, and you guys getting therapy together and figuring out like where are the gaps and how is it hindering you guys. So, yeah. Um, and then they were talking about power. And I think also that's like another aspect of colonialism, right? Because um we all know historically that power comes down to money. Um it comes down to like either money or possessions, and political power. There's another one, but like those two for sure, right? When you think about everything about our world, how we function. So we have men, majority of our legislators are men, and they are the ones making these decisions. And so it comes off as like we don't have powers to make decision as women. We don't have the power to make decisions on our own, and that trickles down because if the laws are not showing that yes, we want to put the power back into, you know, the most vulnerable's hands, which I mean, I use vulnerable like very loosely, but like so like in his in when he said that they abuse power and you're bullying and stuff like that, putting it back into the most vulnerable or the person that's being bullied or abused, putting it back into their hands, the laws have to reflect that. You can't you can't be like, oh yeah, we're going to ensure that, if you're raped, then oh, you have to have this child. Okay, so then you've taken that power away from a woman to even have a decision on her autonomy, on her body, right? If you, even just like the laws, like I think about when, and it's different for each state, like, um, when it comes down to like, getting things like evidence, um, depending on the state that you're in, you are powerless to like even get the type of evidence that you need in a situation. So if someone is taking advantage of you, um, you can't really record it because depending on the situation, it could be illegal, right? Um, Contracts, like there are so many things that you'll notice like they're not in the favor of the people that are the most vulnerable. Um, and it hurts them. And then if the laws don't reflect that, we want to make sure to protect women, which they do not protect women. Um, then and when I say they don't protect, like aside from what I just said, but like even like the shortening of how much time you have to go after somebody, if a perpetrator or something like that. Like just like certain things like that when people have been traumatized and they may at that moment like I don't want to um engage with this system right now, the judicial system, whatever system, I don't feel comfortable, then later down the line, when they've gotten their strength back, it's too late by that time, right? So like just like laws that reflect that you don't give a crap about women. That's the reality of it. Um, what else? And I do think like as men, even in the community, we're seeing a lot more, like I said, we're seeing a lot more of the um domestic violence and that there's a lot more that goes into that, but like with domestic violence, with just even like how women are um paid, how women are not able to get like the positions, leadership positions and stuff like that that they want. Even like, processes and procedures and protocols at work for being pregnant, like just all of these things point to the fact that there's abuse of power, because of the patriarchy, because of the masculinity that we see within the United States, and not just the United States, just kind of everywhere. But yeah, um, I don't know if they got to his heart. What does it mean to be a black woman? I'm sorry. What does it mean to love black women? So, um, I feel like they're trying to get there, right? Um, and in this case, like this is when like when Clifton said at the beginning, he was like, I would love to see this with women and men. I feel like this is a perfect time for like it to be women and men talking. Because I think the biggest part is listening, actively listening, to understand someone. Because I've noticed just like we think that we understand like where someone is coming from. Maybe, there's just certain experiences where it's like, okay, I don't think you understand like you're saying that you love me, but you're not showing it the way that I would think that you would. And like they were talking about, like it's different for everybody. Um, and understanding that because I think sometimes the other thing is people go from one person to the next and they think they can have the same box cutter answer for everybody, and that's not true. Um, I've I feel like I try to be different for every person, right? Because everybody has a different need, but I think men they get stuck on one person. And I felt like that was something that was happening with my ex, like, oh, like I was being compared to his ex and it was like, okay, you know, but that's not me. These are my wishes, these are my wants. Um, and I think looking back, I wish we had talked, like discussed that more, and I wish I had expressed that more. Like I kind of feel like we're having a disconnect because it just seemed like, oh, okay, this is what I like about, this is what my ex did, and this is what blah blah. Um, and so yeah, that was a whole other thing. But like in general, like even looking at some of my um friends, colleagues, and their issues, like, men either infidelity, or like just not giving them the time that they need. Like, I feel like that's like one of the bigger issues is like not receiving the dedicated time that you're looking for. Um, because like ultimately like it's just you want to feel loved. And I think a lot of people don't know what that looks like, and they don't know how to show that. Like, even though they can say that they love someone, I don't think they understand like how that looks. Um, and so it becomes a challenge because you're going tick for tack. At some point, you're going to become tick for tack on that. I think that was all the points that I had. All right, let's go back.
Supposedly, right? Where are we advocating? You know what I'm saying? In the same way of like not being prepared for fatherhood. Where are we advocating for those Black women in the job, in the workplace, and making sure that they are seen in the way that they should be and empowered in the way that they should, in the same way that in fatherhood and outside of fatherhood, when you know that your homie is gonna have thinking about having kids, when you know that your brother or whoever is thinking about having kids, how are you empowering the mother that or who could be the mother, and how are you holding your brother or your homie accountable? And what does that even mean?
The same conversation I can say like, hey, you need to ask for it 150, 200, 175. Be the same conversation like, like, what's he doing?
Right.
Like, and it's like, it might be a conversation. I think also with certain conversations, it doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, or whatever, you're still a man whenever a woman wants to open up and talk to you about certain things, that's when you want to talk about it. Like you can't be overbearing because with patriarchy, with masculinity, it's kind of like you trying to talk about something you want to talk about and shouldn't even want to talk about that. That's you exerting your masculinity over somebody. So like whenever my friends talk about their dating, majority of my friends are introverts. They're real kind of like to themselves. They don't like to talk about their business. When they do open up, that's when I ask like,
So, okay, I want to just do one caveat to what he said. Like, yes, it depends on the situation, right? Like when he's saying to talk to like when a woman wants to talk, and I think this is something important to learn. And this is across the board, right? This is something that I feel like my partner and my ex and I got right. There were times, so okay, I'll tell you what we got right and then what we got wrong. There were times where like if we were in a heated argument, we had the permission to walk away. Like I don't get mad at you for walking away. Um, because I feel like that's a de-escalation technique, right? Like at the end of the day, people get heated, people argue, and if you are so upset, like especially depending on your background, um, sometimes we just need to learn. And that's not just like partners. That's like I've read something about a woman and well, that was different because she literally went and looked for this woman to kill her, which is wild. But I'm saying like if you're with a partner and you should also know someone's history, like their background, like really know it, like especially if you're living with them. Um, I think that's really vital to understand. But in general, like understanding de-escalation where before we even get in an argument, we talk about, okay, if you can walk away? If you can walk away, knowing that you're going to come back together, right? And he's saying like sometimes a woman wants to talk and you need to talk right then and there. If I would say the caveat is like if you if it's not a heated argument, because I feel like that's a lot of times when people are like bickering back and forth and it gets heated and people feel like they're not being listened to. It's just better to calm down in your respective corners and then come back together. Um, and go from there because A, you're not listening to each other anyways. Where I feel like my partner and my ex and I had gotten it wrong is sometimes we would come back and not say anything at all. Like that would be it. Like we would de-escalate and then like we would kind of half-heartedly talk about it and then move on, without giving the time it actually needed to like discuss it. Um, but yeah, like we both had permission to walk away, take a break, without anybody getting angry about that break. And it didn't matter. I mean, like this is within hours, like be reasonable. Like not like you set the time for your partner, right? Like you set the time and say if you feel like you need, 24 hours, I can't think of something that will require 24 hours, but like a couple of hours was, ordinary for us, to kind of walk away and then come back. So yeah, that was my only caveat because he said that, oh, if a woman, and I feel like a lot of women don't I feel like a lot of women do not utilize that tool. I'm not going to say like they don't understand that, but they don't utilize that tool. And it is a tool, right? Because at the end of the day, everybody is human and sometimes you have to break up, not break up, but like literally like take a break and come back together.
okay, like, you know, you have X, Y, and Z. Is he providing you what you need? Or is he just a placeholder until that right man comes? So sometimes it will be different. It just depends.
Yeah.
Because you got to be the person to say it.
Yeah, I would say too.
You got to, no, I want to see what you're going to say.
No, of course.
Placeholder might not be the right thing. It might not be the right thing to say, but.
You know, I was just talking about, I'm 70 years old. So I come from a whole nother era than any of you Negroes is talking about. And what I've learned, and I'm not saying I'm right, I think everybody is right. Because there's so many levels to this. But most of this was laid on our parents' parents.
Yeah.
My father was born in 1915 and his parents were slaves. Well, his grandparents were slaves. So what I've learned is it's not your mother's fault. It's not your father's fault. It's not your fault. We were born into 450 years of post-slavery PTSD. I am 69, be 70 in March. I've just learned how to love. Our parents didn't know how to love. Their parents didn't know how to love. And if I could say anybody maybe had an edge, it was the women. That's why I celebrate Black women. I live with a psychiatrist, forensics detective, gangster, loving Scorpio, Pisces, Cancer, who's just been patient with me to teach me how to love. But in closing on this, because I don't want to get too deep, called my buddy, man. I said, I'm fucking up really bad. I'm fucking up. So I've never been monogamous. So I don't even fucking know what it is.
What age did you become a monogamous?
Today. No, but let me just say what it is.
No.
And we don't talk about this. We don't talk about dopamine being in a pleasant center of the brain like we talked about oxytocin is the hormone. It's called the cuddle hormone. So a lot of times we're just talking in generalities. And that's why I think what you said about counseling, because a counselor is going to get inside of this from a real, not even white people perspective, just from a scientific perspective, unless science is not wrong and the brain is not made what it is. So when I hurt my girl, which I've done over and over, and I commend her for even being with me, and I said it in my podcast, and I'm gonna say this and stop. I called one of my partners who was brilliant. He said, when you hurt somebody, where you leave them is where they stay. So I think our parents, our grandparents, our uncles, the people that raised us, those men who treated the women outside the house nice, but then put the thumb on the grandmama and put the thumb on the girlfriend or whoever. They are all, it all comes from out of all of that. And I think that's what makes me excited that we're going to bring the women and the uncles and we need to bring them all in here. But go ahead.
The one thing that I just want to talk about in Luke, make sure I say that name right, crop this part out. Okay. What Luke brought up was like accountability. Like, yes, we can talk about, what our families did to us, all this, all that. But eventually, and I know white people try and say this, and I really don't like that, but eventually comes a point where you have to decide, how do I want to live my life? I haven't talked to my daddy in 6 years. I don't give a fuck about what my family has gone through. I know where I will go. So it's like, you can only say that for so long. Black women are tired and, kind of like putting onto them like, hey, you didn't do this entirely, because everybody in here, several people have talked about going to counseling. Have that upon yourself. Stop waiting for a woman to tell you what you need to do. Take that upon yourself.
Let me address that real quickly. For me, I didn't know fucking how to
Can I say one more thing? No, I have to say this, because another thing that happens is, too, you live your life for so long, and I'm not meaning no disrespect by that.
Just say it, bro.
But when you hit your 60s and your 70s, I want to be right.
Hey, but let me.
I want to live my life right. I want someone to take care of me and protect me, and that's what a lot of women have issues with.
Living it right the fuck now.
As I said, I said 60s and 70s.
Let me say this.
Don't overtalk me.
I'm gonna fucking overtalk you because you're talking out of
line. You're not gonna disrespect me.
You don't know what the fuck. You can't tell me what the fuck I'm living, nigga. I'm living it right. You cannot shit that you don't even know.
I think there's a misunderstanding.
He's generalizing.
Listen, you
don't shit unless you meet somebody who is on another level to help you elevate to understand. I'm not indicting anybody. I'm telling you what the shit is. You can't fix some shit that you don't know about, bro.
Yeah.
You can't. And then you get there at 69 or 70 and say, I thought I was being loving all this time. That's what our parents have gone through. And that's why we are so fucked up right now.
You asked, how do we love Black women?
Yeah.
That's right here. Trust Black women and listen to Black women because they know more than we do what it is that they need.
I think they were right. I feel like there was a misunderstanding, but also, I kind of feel like I forgot his name, sorry. But the other guy, let me just look him up instead of saying the other guy. He he should have listened a little bit more. He said 1915, his grandmother. I think he said Clifton said his grandmother was born a slave. The other guy, he's probably removed 3 generations. So Clifton's a boomer, right? And then so he's literally, I don't know if he's known his grandmother, but like he's not that far removed from slavery as much as the other guy, right? So we have to be careful and cognizant. Yes, we should still take into account that those things still affect us. They literally still affect us. Whether you believe it or not, and that can be genetically or mentally, right? If you talk about epigenetics, we talk about what we were exposed to, again, both mentally and physically. So harsh environments, being beaten, um, just the mental wear and tear of a Black person in the US. Yes, that does follow you. Then having your parents trying to raise you to be as strong as them, because they don't know, they can't foresee what the future might be. It might be the future of the same thing. So you're trying to simultaneously raise someone strong, but then also strong enough to survive, right? Like that's the reality of it. Strong enough to survive. Um, and that is literally the epitome of reproduction, right? So if you're talking about like what he's saying is like we didn't like my parent or his parents didn't have time to think about, okay, like let me infuse you with also like attention and love. Like maybe they just didn't understand how to do that. And it reflected the fact that he is this age, he's had to survive all of the things that he's had to survive thus far. And then now, as he's reflecting back, which tends to happen, like if you look at the developmental lifespan whole situation, that's oftentimes what happens at that age. You're looking back and you're realizing, like, oh, I really did get this wrong. I wasn't, that great to this person. Like you that's just the reality of your lifespan, right? Just like the gentleman, he might get to his 60s and 70s and like Dang, you know what? I really could have been talking to my dad this whole time. I'm really am curious to know, like, why he did X, Y, and Z. Like, if I were like if I were talking to him, I'd be like, I don't even have my dad to even be able to ask him that. Like he'd even make it to this age, like to the age your dad probably is to even be able to ask him that. So like I think, a lot of people, I'm noticing a lot of people are like disconnecting from their families. And I understand there are some treacherous people in the families, and I'm like, what the heck? Like that put them through a lot of stuff. And I don't know his story at all. So he might be valid in what he's going through, but I also felt like he was projecting. So, yeah. Anyways, we will wrap this up for now and we'll finish up the rest tomorrow. See you guys. Pizza. Door. Yeah. Yeah. Is it getting better or worse? Getting better. The scab though, but throw that in the garbage. I dropped that so many times. It's ridiculous. It's so much. Okay. Um, I make breakfast shrimp. You have your soup. You don't tell me what you want. You said you don't want them from. What you got? What is it? Shrimp and rice or shrimp and rice? This guy told me my black lights were out. I think I pulled it, in the trunk. But it didn't seem like it was out to me, but I don't know. He said like when I'm driving, the lights were out. Do you want it? What, grandpa shrimp? Or the soup? Um, I'll try it. I'll try it once it's done. It's cold.
Front door.
So wait a minute, when you talked to what's his face, did you bring up what he initially told you? Yeah. And he said